Hello, my name is Dr. Maya Byfield. My business is The Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. Hey, hey, hey. It's the phenomenal STEMist. What's going on, everybody? I have all four of my people with me today. All four, all four. So happy that you guys are here. Dr. Kamoy Harris, Bryant Goodine, Howard Webley. I mean, STEMists in their own right, phenomenal STEMists, physicians, public health professionals, and retired microbiologists moving into social science space. Listen, we're doing big things over here. And I'm happy that you are all for the quad squad, is what I'm calling you. We already had a quad squad, but you my quad squad. What's going on, everybody? Y'all, hello? Can y'all hear
We
me?
we chilling, we chilling.
And why are you yelling? I mean, it's late. It is late. You are too
We're
excited.
we're we're STEM people. We don't really,
I know. STEM people are
emote
so
like that.
STEM people are special.
So this is a controlled environment, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We're talking about workplace conflict today. And it's so fitting because these past couple of weeks have been a little interesting for me, in terms of workplace conflict. And so, oh, I lost Kamoy. And so we're going to really get into in, rel in, rel in relation to STEM, in relationship to STEM, what does workplace conflict look like? Yeah. And so hopefully Kamoy gets back in because I was so excited about the quad squad, all four of us together. But I can hang with the gentlemen as well. I can hold my own with you guys. Um, what what do you think are the most common sources of workplace conflict in the context of STEM careers? We like Howard said, we're not really we don't emote that much. How have you personally experienced it? Workplace conflict. So I'll go first. Hopefully, Kamoy gets in. I am. So I have been in different positions. I have. I have. I've. I've been a lab professional. So I've worked in a laboratory. Um, I've worked in academia all my life. So my all I have not been any place but academia. I've been a graduate student working in the lab. I've been a postdoctoral scientist working in an academic lab, so working at a school of medicine in a neuroscience lab at a school of medicine. And then I've been a professor for the past since 2007. So what is that? Like 18 years. I've been a professor, and when I was in college at Oakwood, I was a TA, like a lab professional teaching lab. So I've been teaching college students since I've been 19, 20 years old. I'm 47. So for the past 27 years, I've been teaching college students. And so I think my biggest uh, conflict in the workplace has never been with my colleagues at the professional level. It's usually with students. That has been mine. What's your most common source of conflict at your STEM career?
Before I answer, I want to acknowledge that I'm just now finding out that you were a lab, someone who helped people in college, because I got no help. I got none at all. So much so that I was just like, I'm just going to focus on business. I don't belong in this building. There's no one to help me. I'm tired of withdrawing from classes, just kicking the can down the road. So,
Were you a biology major, Brian?
of course not.
Oh, what was your
I'm
major?
sorry. Did that come off wrong? No, I was not fortunate to utilize my intellectual skills in that range. I only wanted to work in numbers that I could see. I didn't even like calculus or what is that, algebra. I needed business numbers. Give
Okay.
me commas and periods. So anything that had to do with quantum physics or equations or like statistics, I was like, oh, this is business statistics. No, I found out that there was a science statistics. I dropped that class within 2 weeks because I was like, this ain't me. So I knew where my lane was, but even I think I took biology maybe 3 times. It wasn't that I couldn't get it. It was going from a small school to a large school. It was like all these people. So I was
Oh,
focused more on the people than on the problems.
then the
So
problems. Yeah. Yeah. I was in my freshman year, I was a tutor at the Academic Success Center, but you had to come by that office. You had to come by. And most people don't go by to the Academic Success Center. But in my sophomore through senior year, I was a biology lab instructor. So only my class got me. I have a lot of physicians that's and I didn't even know this. Who was it who told me this? Who was it? Chinwei.
okay.
Chinwei was like, Maya, you impacted my life so much. Who would have knew? I think I taught her organic lab and I taught her biochem lab. And you don't even know. You don't even know until they come back years later that you had impact. So my lab's people, it's not like I taught everybody, but I taught biolab, organic lab, biochemistry lab in college. Yeah.
So see, all of y'all that did that, y'all have affected the doctors that I go see today. So I
That's right.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But you
Absolutely.
asked about conflict. I'm going to be real. It's the people.
It's the
I
people.
had no issue with the work. It was the people, just different cultures, even race. I'll put that out there. Race.
Yeah.
You have everyone's coming from their ethnocentric mindset, and when you have to either defend yourself or try to promote yourself, some people are not there for it, and so conflict arises when we're bringing two different. It's like marriage, bringing two different viewpoints, two different upbringings, and trying to say, well, this one works better than that. And as we all know in science, there's no one way it works better. You can modify, but there are some certain core values, core rules that are tried and true.
Yeah.
I would say it's a people.
People. People. What about you guys?
For me, it yes, of course, people, but not so much. Not so much my colleagues. I would say usually, or at least people at my level. It's usually people that report to me. So a lot of I think my biggest issue has been questioning my authority. Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
I sound like you just said a word. And you can tell who has people underneath them and who doesn't, because the two that doesn't, we're like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean, it's, I'm settled where I am now and everything, but usually when I get, especially when you start a new place and nobody knows you, even when you introduce yourself as, I'm Dr. Harris, I'm, whoever I am, and this is what I'm here for, and it's almost like you have to prove yourself. And I've been in a lot of different, conflicts with regards to that and had to figure out ways to navigate it. Again, without coming off as the angry Black woman.
Right. That
So,
you,
yeah.
oh my goodness. You're speaking some words today, and we only 10 minutes in. Like, there's so many layers to this. Being a woman, being a Black woman, having a high education, and having to constantly prove it to people. It's tiring. It's exhausting. Howard?
Yeah, I, I can't resonate with that necessarily. I can't piggyback on that, but I would say just seeing it though, I definitely saw it. What you're referring to, what you guys have just mentioned, because well, my particular area when I was in the lab, that very much was I don't think I would say this is probably 50-50, but nowadays there's more women. I think it's a micro is pretty much female dominated laboratory space, and so yeah, when our ladies were in management, I, not only in the laboratory but also when I was in the field, I did see the challenges they faced. I know for me, it's primarily, like you said, it's people. And that was always a surprise to me because, well, I learned that in academia while I was in school. I learned through my professors and so forth that I was hoping that I didn't have to deal with people. That was my whole thing. I was like, I'll take the math, I'll take the algebra, I'll take the, I just, hopefully I just don't have to deal with, give me a job where I just have to deal with this stuff right here, which is always consistent. It's always the same. And I don't have to figure them out, aside from what they are. I know they already do what they already do. And I was trying to avoid that in academia and dealing with my professors and so forth. No, not dealing with them, but like interacting with them. And just in one of the professors whose lab I worked in, and he would, you know, he was the person of color, and he would let me know that, man, it's, some of the challenges that he was facing as a tenured professor.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, I was like, oh, we can't. In my mind, I'm like, we can't escape this thing. This is
nah.
always, there's still gonna be.
No
So
matter
when I
how
was,
no matter how high you go.
yeah, and so when I got into actual workspace again, I started very young, right out of college. I got into that government laboratory space, and it was just interesting. It wasn't annoying to me at the time. I was so wet behind the ears that it didn't. I was just like, oh man, people just be wild, and oh man. But when I started to, solidify my career, and you started to see you knew who you started to see the competition, and when you knew who the people who you were up against, so to speak. And I mean, it's friendly competition. Nobody was hating necessarily that I knew of. But it was just when it got competitive, that's when you started to see conflict. But the other thing I want to mention also is that I just started to realize that people were people. Because, like I said, I started early. So most of my colleagues were older than me, had families, had, with children and just the trials of life they were really embedded in. And I was just witnessing that. I was witnessing how that shows up at work, how that can easily show up at work, and how
Mhm.
I, I got so many stories over the years of different interactions that I've had, but I just remember this one was a woman of color that I had a run in with, and and I was just like, man, why are we doing this to each other?
Mm.
And but I think it was maybe, I don't remember if it was months or years after. It was probably a couple of years after I found out that at that time that we had a run in, she was going through some medical challenges that I didn't know about. And that's what I mean by, sometimes it's just people are going through things, and you just don't know, because the workplace is a place where, when you're in a workplace that where I was in a steady workplace over the years, you're literally seeing people grow through life. They saw me grow up there, and I saw them age there.
Mm. That's true. I've been working for at my current place of employment for what 16, 17 years, and just to watch my colleagues, they were pregnant, and now their kids are in high school, or they had babies and now their kids are about to go to college, um or they had children and now their kids are in college, and they're trying and you just seeing, that's the beauty of being at a space for a long term and growing. And a lot of us, we all core, the beauty of STEM academia is, and government, we pretty much stay 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. So we really grow with people, and so we experience different people at different stages in their lives. But if you really get along, it can be really enriching experience. How do you approach conflict differently when it involves peers versus supervisors versus leadership? So I, I approach peers and supervisors and leadership pretty similarly, with a level of respect. Towards my supervisors and my leadership, I give them, deference. That I usually submit to them, um, even if I disagree. Even if I disagree, I'll never forget. It was early in my, I think, years at my current employment, and I felt like something was being slighted. I never forget it. And my boss was like, "Well, then do something about it." Like, then do something about it. She respond. I don't think she even remembers this, but I was feeling that the change needed to happen at her level, or whatever. And truthfully, the change happened at my level. Like, I literally said, "Okay, fine. I will. I'm not gonna go back and forth with you on this. I'm gonna do what you say. I'm gonna do something about it." And so much things happen at because of it. Grants were made because of it. Like, so sometimes you gotta. I believe I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that God speaks through my those who are my authority, even if they're not even on your side necessarily. God could be still speaking through them, and if you submit to God through them, things will happen. In terms of my peers, honestly, I ignore peers that I don't agree with. I don't try to change peers' minds. I just, like, soon if I get a roadblock from a peer, I just shift in a different direction. Like, okay, I'm not gonna work with you no more. Like, I'm pretty with peers. I shift, and I only work with people who are in agreement. It really didn't talk about underlings. Like, I have to manage those who are below me. I have to show my authority because it's critical. Because them students will, what they'll do is they'll galvanize each other and try to form a coup. So, like, authority in the classroom is pinnacle for me, and I maintain that. Yeah, I'm kind of no joke in the classroom. I got to maintain that authority because you got to make sure that everybody knows who's the authority in the course classroom, and there's following of directions. That's how I do it. What about you guys? How do you approach people differently depending on what they are, supervisors versus?
It's very similar to what you said in terms of, giving deference to those above me. I usually don't have a lot. I usually don't run into conflict with my peers. That's not very common.
Yeah,
And then, of course, making sure that if there are people that, have to um, report to you, that they understand your role and kind of, you know, um, making your authority known. But I always try to have a conversation because sometimes a conflict really could just be from a misunderstanding
misunderstanding.
or something. I always try to have a frank conversation, not beat around the bush. This is be very direct. This is what's going on. This is my point of view. Let me hear yours. Why is that your point of view? This is why I think, what I'm thinking, and how can we come to a solution? But I do try to at least have a conversation because I feel like most of the times I can get to a resolution by trying to understand what's going on. And if you can't, if it's somebody who's over you, as long as I always say, as long as it's not a patient safety issue, I will defer to my boss. Yeah. And if it's somebody under me, you gotta do what I say.
But to your point, everybody deserves a respectful conversation. Above, below. Yeah. Howard, Bryant, what y'all think?
Uh oh.
Hold up. I see Brian's giving me the gas face. What are you saying that everybody doesn't deserve a respectful conversation, Brian? Talk to me.
I'll say this. For those above me, Coming to America had the greatest line, whatever you like. You give the person whatever they like. But if it's someone below you, I believe that as long as you have the authority, you're standing on business, you can fall on that authority. I think it's disingenuous if we give someone the thought that what they say could actually change
Change your mind.
your mind.
Yeah.
It's better to just say, you know what, I'm validating your feelings. I understand you don't like this, but you kind of don't have a choice. You have to do it. So we can talk about our feelings. It might be 2 minutes of that conversation. The rest of it is you got to do it. So kind of get it out your way. I tell my 10-year-old son, I mean, yes, we can write a sentence, but you need to write it as the person who is grading it wants to see it.
That's
Just
right.
give them what they want.
That's right.
This is not the time to this is not the fight to fight. Just you this is only a small little moment in the whole span of your life. So for those above me, whatever you like, I'm gonna give you what you want, how you want it. Let's just get it done. It's a job. But for those that are under me, I'm gonna let you know. It this is non-negotiable. We can talk about feelings. I'm all for that because I want to validate people's
Right.
feelings and concerns. But at the end of the day, this has to be done, and it has to be done this way. You might have small variations, but as a manager, I think you get more respect by really setting clear lines and boundaries and giving people the freedom in the areas they truly have it. Try to make them feel like they can do more, and when they get let down, that breeds content, that breeds disruption, because we
Listen,
all know that as leaders, as y'all get closer up, your circle gets smaller.
yeah,
Those at the bottom, they will talk, they will pour poison in the minds of those who don't know.
yep. And to me, I don't know. I don't know if it's that I'm getting older, but this generation, Generation Z, feel that
You need
they
some belt, because
they
that's the problem.
they need a belt.
You're
I'm
right.
sorry, they feel that they haven't
We don't condone any
have
violence, but
Yeah, say
I'm
that. We
sorry,
don't
I'm
condone
sorry. We're not
violence.
promoting. Sorry, we're not promoting violence on here.
This is
That
discipline,
was a
right?
joke. That was a joke. Uh, no, serious. This generation feels. I don't know. They feel like since they have social media, they can go on social media and complain. They can cancel people. They try to get people fired. They think they have the authority. They think they have the authority. I don't. I've never experienced that, and I've taught multiple generations. Matter of fact, I don't even think it's this generation. It's this age. Because it could be people in my generation behaving like a generation
Well,
Z.
I told you before, if you want millions of viewers, you're gonna have to show your butt. You're gonna
Yeah,
have to do something that is shocking. And what I like about this is that people will hear this. This goes out on the web and they will hear it. And it, even if it's one person, that one person needed it. I'd rather effectively change one person than try to influence negatively thousands of people. I
yeah.
don't need that, because at some point I'm going to be someone's grandfather, great grandfather, and they'll be like, "Granddad, why did I see your butt on the internet?"
On the
I'm
internet.
like, I don't know why, son, but
I was trying to get
I thought it
views.
was cool then. Yeah. So
Howard, what do you how do you approach conflict differently?
yeah, again, like, so, with your sort of situation, and my in academia and so forth, what I'm hearing you saying, and which I know is pretty much the situation. You have a lot more autonomy in your environment, where when so when excuse me, when it comes to, well, I just don't want to, I don't rock with that person over there, so I'm gonna just continue to do my thing over here. That is quite the privilege, in that environment there. But in some of these other spaces where you are dealing with, where you are staff and you are dealing, whether you are managing staff or you're a middle manager or you are the staff, and it can get so sticky and dicey, because you literally are, it's a little family. It's a little town. It's a little community. If you're a manager over, let's say, 10 subordinates, let's say in a laboratory environment, whether it be an environmental lab or clinical, whichever, and you have, staff that you're managing, and you have your higher ups who you're answering to, and then you have this group, and this group here has a million and one issues, and they're so diverse in their being and so forth. And when we're speaking in the context of STEM people, just like we were joking about earlier, right? There's a lot more dynamics that you have to deal with because we don't emote and so forth, and there's a lot of passive aggression. There's a lot that you're dealing with there. I know for me, similar to Kamor, and you mentioned about conversations, and I'm the relationship guy. That's sort of why I segued over to where I am. I'm going over to now in social and behavioral. I've always been the relationship guy in the lab. I've always been the guy who is, relating to people, relating with people, interacting with folk, because, and the reason why really is because I know they don't.
Right.
Like, it's understanding of my people as STEM people. Like, I just know what I know. I know what that they I know that relationship is something that they crave just as human beings, but that they're not good at. So as a result, I like to help them to unwind and being a minority in that space, in those spaces, it's almost as if they kind of like, you know it's there's this response to me as the one who is kind of the minority and who would normally feel out of space or out of place. I'm the one who's bringing them out
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 there.
of their space. Like, I'm the one who's bringing them out, you know. And so I really, for me, that's number one with conflict. It's really prevention. It's really conflict prevention, because there's some other folk that's very common in the STEM environment where we feel like, because it's not about the people and it's about the work. In STEM environments, a lot of times we just talk however.
Right.
Like folk in STEM spaces, people there's very little there's very little regard for emotional intelligence and so forth. We just talk how it is. People be cursing up in the lab. They just it's like whatever. And so that's historically that's how it's been. Maybe things are
How can y'all
changing
work in an
nowadays,
environment like that?
but that yeah, no, that's how
How it
that's how
is.
you do it. It's
Great. I
that's
love
just
it.
how it is. So, and it's not necessarily it's right. It's not necessarily. I can't say I loved it, but it's not necessarily because people be mean to each other. That's the thing. And so there's some folk who really catch the brunt
Mm.
of it, and because it's a norm, it's not held. You're not held accountable as
Mm.
much. So that's some of the issues that. But when it comes to, you know, and especially as you know, right, Brian, in the government environment, your higher ups, you pretty much, you do as you're told. But again, I'm a relationship guy. I love to have conversations. I've had managers who say, you know, hey, come in here and talk with me, like, because they actually appreciate having conversations with me. And because especially when I got more higher up in seniority, they didn't mind having conversations with me about work and about how we're doing things and how they wanted to know from me how I felt, things were going, how my input and so forth. So it was, but then it was always about, okay, relationship, like what's going on with you, and they didn't mind having those type of conversations because we don't do it in the STEM environment. So they appreciated it when we did it. But those are the challenges though that you face because people, and so they'll even bring that to the among the leadership. The leadership will go at it. You ever had board meetings like that, but they just go at it like
Mm.
it's very interesting. In STEM
Church
environment,
environment,
they
it's
they
pretty
really go at
similar.
it.
How do you sorry, what role do communication styles and cultural differences play in escalating or resolving conflict? And that kind of talks about what you were saying. In many of our STEM spaces, they are people from different countries. Heavy, especially like where I went to grad school, heavy Asian. When I say Asian, I mean those Chinese, heavy Indian, and to me, they're straight no chaser. Um, they probably some of them may feel intimidated by the language barrier, so they may not even talk much. So sometimes you have those who are not talking much, or like there would be labs just pure Chinese, so they're speaking. I chose not to go to a lab, even though I liked the work, but it was just like 100% Chinese, and I didn't feel like I would be able to communicate because they started to talk Mandarin in the lab for comfort, so there might be a language barrier, language different. But in my institution when we in grad school, I studied my good friends. Our study group were very diverse: Indian, Chinese, white, black, like two of each. It's like it was even, and so we were speaking English, and they would get hot in the like, no, it's supposed to be like this. It's like a good debate. It's a different, but you got to have that thick skin. If you don't have thick skin, it might it it could lead to hurt feelings in certain spaces. Now, to your point, Howard, should there be some level of accountability? Because we're living in a world where, lab work is not the only thing. In the future, to be successful in science, you have to get along with different communication styles and people. And if so, that's why so many scientists stay in the lab and they don't venture out. But soon the lab will be over. Like
Correct.
this is for those of you out there who are hardcore science. Like robots would be doing that, homeboy. If you can't get along with people, if you can't communicate well with people, your skill set in the lab is not going to matter as much because of artificial intelligence. So it needs to change. What do you guys think about communication styles and cultural differences and how they may deal that cause escalation or resolve of conflict?
I could jump back on that real quick because, especially in a federal environment like that, we you have some folk are former
Mhm.
military. It's a huge intersection actually of different folk. Our government is sort of known for taking on people from all these different spaces. Not sure where we're going these days, but they're known for taking on a lot of a number
Ooh,
of different
said
people.
something funny.
You all right there? Yeah.
I'm sorry. You said something funny. I'm not gonna repeat it because I still fortunate to still be working and getting paid. So
Amen. 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 Wait, you getting paid? All right, that's a whole other.
that's a whole nother
There's a shutdown.
podcast.
Mercy, no,
Okay.
mercy. You trying to be good now. I'm trying to keep
Yeah.
y'all getting
So
paid.
Right. I need
so
this.
but yeah, so you got let's just say for example, you got federal military, former military folk, and they're used to communicating a certain way.
Yeah,
And then let's say now you have military folk who come in and now you're dealing with some of the demographics that you mentioned, where you have some Asian people and so forth who come in, and now you have the, and then you have, I don't know, a little Bronx boy like me. You have all these different people together, and these are things that I used to talk about. Actually, I used to mention to management that these are years ago. I used to mention this, that you have to take these things into consideration. That you know I've seen people, they get positions over others just because of the language barrier, and not it's not a language barrier. It's an accent barrier, like you know,
true, true.
and things of that nature. But their culture is that they don't speak up and talk loud in the meetings. They know exactly what they're doing, and they are
Yeah,
go-to people because of
yeah,
their knowledge and so forth. But the person who just speaks loudly and carry and does the cultural thing, the more culturally acceptable thing. Now, I was a person who I spoke up. I learned that I needed to speak up, but I don't curse. So I
right.
just I don't operate that way. But I'll speak up for myself, and I'll put my points and so forth. I had a manager tell me one time when I came into a new space, a newer space, I had a relationship with him and everything. And in meetings, or from observing me in meetings, he let me know one on one. He was like, "Howard, you need to speak up. Like, no, you've got a lot to contribute." Now, it's not that I was wet behind the ears still. It was that I was senior, but I was in a new space. So I was just observing, and I didn't really want to step on toes or anything like that. And he was like, "No, you should speak up. You should speak up and let your voice be heard." So I learned that, okay, you just got to know how to do it properly. But with those different cultural entities going on, I let them know that sometimes their you know not ideologies, but different characteristics that are there, that are really discriminatory in nature, that are causing people to not be heard, even though they have the voice to speak. And there's only a few people who will say, "Hey," who will do it properly and say, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think over there? What do you think over there?" And when I did act, anytime I was in management, acting in management, I was always so very, I never had any, I don't know, maybe I didn't do it enough, never got the position really, but I never had problems with staff. I never had problems with staff. It was always about relationship. It was always about, let's go do this, let's go get this done. And everybody was always compliant. I never had issues with people not, wanting to buck heads with me.
You know, I really wish that social skills would be graded just as equally as, mathematical skills. I never forget, I was when I was in grad school, we had a class that discussed journal articles, and it was a painful experience because nobody wanted to speak. So the teacher would be like, "Okay, what do you guys think about this journal?" And nobody would say anything. So I would say stuff, and then she would be waiting other people to say. These are people, like very few African Americans. But one thing we know how to do is now we know how to talk. you know? And I will never forget when she said, "Okay, I'm gonna have to call on people." Why folk did this in the class? They didn't even, they were like, "Don't call on me." You should get an F. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Wow. What if
yeah,
they were shy? What if they were shy? They should just get an F because they're shy.
this
I'm
is
not
a
speaking about
journal.
myself.
This is a journal article. This is a course for discussion.
Okay, so
Like what I'm not saying I'm being extra, but what I'm saying is that
Right.
they don't hold those same people will get mad at me for getting into Harvard,
Hmm.
calling me a DEI hire, or you know what I'm saying? Oh, if she didn't have as high of a SAT score as me, right? Meanwhile, your soft skills are horrible. Yeah, you may have a better math score than me, but your soft skills are horrible, and your soft skills are necessary for the workplace. So now you have a whole bunch of people who don't even want to talk to people teaching physics. You get my point, right? So
Yeah.
let me be nice. I didn't. I just picked physics off the top of my head, y'all. There are probably some good physics teachers out there, but you get my point, right? Like communication styles are very important, and it needs to be just as important as other skill sets. Brian, you were saying.
okay, so today I was skimming through Facebook during my free time. I came across a video, and I'm gonna say exactly what I heard. It says Black Americans have high confidence but low self-esteem
Yeah.
due to slavery,
Hmm.
while Black Africans and Caribbeans have high self-esteem but low confidence. So we we can talk, but we talk about things that are comfortable, things that are our norm that fits in the space. No one told us when we walked in our job on day one that that you have a voice and that your voice matters. Now, when we, after a period of time, when we grow and we can, feel that way, then the confidence kicks in because the esteem is there. We've been esteemed by others when we just didn't naturally have that esteem. I know that because when I first came into the federal government, my mouth was shut because I was like, what value do I have? I have none. Now I can say, do exactly what Howard does. Management will come talk to me. They'll try to get the pulse of the work environment. The youngins now, those that were born in the 90s now come to me and I'm like, man, am I that old guy now? I am, because I've spent time and I've learned things. And I've been esteemed so that
Yeah.
confidence level can kick in.
Yeah.
This is why there's a lot of conflict. And I'm surprised we haven't touched it. There's an ageism thing. When
Hmm.
older people see younger people, they don't feel as though they have value. They forget that at one point they were in that space. And
Yeah.
young people are afraid to say something and be told that they're wrong.
Hmm.
If we're willing to just go out and just put ourselves out there, there's both sides will learn something. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of conflict comes from lack of confidence, lack of esteem, and just ageism. Like if a 15-year-old came up to you right now and was talking STEM, do you really think that you would listen? Do you think you would really hear them, or you'd be like, yeah, you haven't gotten there yet, young one. Give it some time. Once you get there, then we can talk.
I can
But
learn
what
from
happens if they have
anybody.
Hmm?
I can learn from anybody.
Yeah, yeah, but to his point, no, there's a subset of a population of
Mm.
a generation who absolutely consider themselves as gatekeepers because they had to, and they are saying that you have to go
Right.
through what I went through. And so that's something that we have from, I would say, in any of these spaces, government, academia, and anywhere where unfortunately our people had to go through something. They had to go through something to get where they're at. They weren't just a shoe-in. They had to work hard to get where they were at, and they had to go through a lot of. We're talking about conflict. They went through way more conflict than we experienced. But as a result, I would say, as a result of that trauma, then they want to pass that on to the next generation. As so, when you show up, they're
They,
sort of treating you as though you have to go through the same thing that they went through,
And they
yeah.
get
even if,
upset when you don't.
Say
yeah,
again, Brian. Say
because
again. They give you what?
And I said, and they get really upset when you don't. And then they try to hold on to that gate a little bit longer because again, their value is in the not in the time span it took to gain that knowledge. And
Gotcha.
anybody that can do it a little bit less is a threat.
Wow. Come on, you've been kind of quiet.
I was just gonna say, I feel like, when it comes to this, I guess, generational thing, which is, source for conflict a lot of times. I feel like we're living on the extremes. Those are like, no, you need to suffer, and then you have the young ones are just like, I just want to hand it to me, and like, where's the middle ground, right? Can we try to eliminate some of the toxicity, some of the things that don't need, some of the barriers that don't need to be there?
Mm-hmm.
Time recognize that, hey, you still have to put the work in. It's not just going to be handed to you, right? There's still a level of work that I would love to see us meet in the middle where that's concerned, because I feel like that those two extremes, living at the two extremes, is why we have, all that conflict.
That is so true. And I feel like that's in every situation in life. It feels like everybody's on the extremes and nobody wants to be in the middle.
I thought we were in the middle. Aren't we? We're not that old and we're not that young. Are we in the middle?
No, I don't even think she. Not.
no, in terms
I
of,
don't think she's talking about even extremes in the generations. I mean, extremes in mindsets of
yeah,
either you got to get what's the term, hazed. You got to
Hazed.
get hazed,
yeah, yeah,
or you like, oh, I want to have work life balance. I want to, I don't want to do anything.
yeah,
Like it's like too like, nah. Where's the no? You don't need to be hazed, but you do have to put the work in mentality. To your point, Brian, are we that generation that are like that? I don't know.
I'm saying we can see both sides. We have to acknowledge that, that there was, we still have the historical knowledge of some maybe seeing the tail end of, when I would say when civil rights was, we were beginning to really feel and see some of the stuff that was done in the 60s and
Right.
70s. We began to really experience it in the late 80s and 90s and 2000s. But we're also, because we've been through at least what I was 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, I've seen 6 different decades.
Oh my god.
And we had those historical books, Eyes on the Prize,
Yeah. Yeah.
Reading Rainbow. We had stuff to help us to see where we once was to where we're going. Now we see where we are now, and it's like, okay, well, there are some shortcuts, but
Yeah.
those shortcuts come with the knowledge of this is how we were able to we didn't skip over stuff, but we found process improvements. And I think those who are older, they lost, they see process improvements as cheating, and those who are young see looking at the historical historical references as a waste of time. Like, we're already here, why we got to go back? It's
right.
You got to know where you came from in order to really see where you're going, when those comforts and those norms, as we're seeing now, begin to just be tossed away.
Who is it that said those who are ignorant of history are doomed to repeat it?
Mm,
That.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me Google it. Somebody said it.
But come on, I think it goes back to one of your initial points about sort of the effects of ignorance, and why, and to as to why I say sort of the maybe solution kind of sort of is the relationship is learning people, like because we're doing this. The reason why we're going to these extremes is because we're going off of what we think, how we think it ought to be, and we don't know what people's experience actually is. We don't know what their situations actually are. So you're prescribing, so to speak, a way of, okay, you're subscribing, so to speak, a way that people ought to behave, and they're responding to that. Like, you don't know me. Like, I'm sure all Z's is like, you don't know me. But guess what? I used to say the same thing, bro. You don't know me. Why you gonna say I need to do this? I need to do that. You don't know me, right? And both are wrong. I'm projecting something onto you that I feel you need because I needed it, right? And so I'm mad at that. But I'm like, bro, why are you even saying, or why are you even saying this to me? You don't know me, right? But I don't know your situation. I don't know what you experienced as to why you feel, you need to add value to me, right? So both are sort of at a loss of understanding. And so that's why I feel like the dialogues need to take place, because you need to understand what people are actually going through, and why they feel, because none of us like labels. None of us want to be labeled as, this is who this is, looks like this is what you need. Like, what? Like, how you know? How you know what I need? Like, so that's what I
Well,
feel like.
if you fail in my class, if you fail in my class and you're not doing homework, I think you need to do your homework. Brian, you have something to say? Go ahead, bro.
So to me, I feel like I'm hearing when people are not willing to accept feedback or help, they're living in their insecurity, because a secure
Yeah,
person will accept help.
right,
They will accept, I'm wrong. And I'm
right.
thinking, I think I was insecure when I first started in the federal government, because I ain't want no one to help me. I was
You
like,
too.
I got disagreed. I said, I know what to do. But when I became secure in myself, I found that I was listening more than reacting. And I think it sounds like a lot of conflict. I wonder if it comes from in
Insecure
the STEM world, insecurities. Like,
so much.
or is it more of just the fact that y'all have to really compete? Because I thought it was like a team effort. Like, you come up with this paper, it's a team effort. I'm seeing like 15 names on there. But it's sounding more like there
It's
is one
competition.
position and y'all everyone is fighting for just one opportunity.
It's a lot of competition in STEM.
Oh,
Even with the 15 authors, it's only one first author, and there's a lot of competition to get a first author paper. There's a
hmm,
lot of competition to get into that school in medical school. There's a competition to get into the residency program for dermatology. Like there's only two dermatology residencies. Like there is so much competition in
hmm,
STEM, and
And
everybody and people are it, I'm not a fan of people talk about say I'm a competitive person. I'll say this. So I play pickleball, and I love competition so that it can challenge me. I don't necessarily have to win. That's what people don't
hmm,
understand. If you really play with me, for instance, if you play with me on volleyball, on pickleball, if we lose but we've died trying, I am satisfied. There's some people, it don't matter how well you did. If you lost, they are mad and they'll go run off the place and they'll cuss you out. That ain't me. And what I'm so I like the challenge of STEM. I can't stand the competitive nature that it can be. That's why I moved into academia, where I love the knowledge. I'm not trying to compete. I'm not trying to get into some, everybody got into Einstein who had a good GPA. I mean, not everybody. I was able to compete to the point to get into a spot that somebody lost, right? So there's a certain level, but there's no hierarchy there once you get in. There's no A, B, C, D, F in Einstein. It's pass, fail. Um, it's about getting the work done. But there's a lot of competition to get the PhD. There's competition to get into a lab of your choice. And everybody's insecure because everybody, unfortunately, smart people, when you get a B, it like you I'll use myself as an example. When I got, and I wasn't doing it necessarily to compete with somebody else. So it's not even always about competition, always with somebody else. It's about having your highest ideal met, whatever your highest ideal met. So if I wanted all A's and I got a B or all B's or something, I remember getting crying tears to the point when my eyes were swollen, because I was not getting the grades I wanted for Chem 1, Chem 2 actually, because I got a B in Chem 1 and I'm like, I don't want another B in Chem 2. And I cried and cried and cried because of test scores because I was going to get a B. That's that level of insecurity. It's like we don't want to fall short of our standard set for, sometimes not necessarily against other people, but for ourselves.
So, and
A lot of
hence why,
pressure on ourselves.
and hence why once you get wherever there is, once you get there, wherever there is, the level of, entitlement, the level of, how much you feel you did to get here and so
Right.
forth. And if you're, it's that Kobe thing. If you're looking at her, you know how much you did, you looking at everybody else, and you're like, y'all didn't do as much as I did, you know what I mean? And you have this thing, with other folk. Especially if you see them slide through, and that's why outside of academia, it gets, like you said, man, you're like, I'm not going that other route. I'm staying my behind right over here, because once things like money and so forth get tied to STEM, and
Yeah.
it can be so it can be
Cutthroat.
unnerving.
Yeah.
So this is that's what. But I'm Brian. I'm really, you mentioned something that I wanted to make sure to mention in this conversation, and that is, oh my gosh, what you mentioned, and I remembered, and now I forgot, was
We lost
Then
him.
he just drops
oh,
off.
He just drops off.
So
All
let
right.
me ask you this real quick. Is
Go
there
ahead.
a list? Because of what I'm hearing is that there isn't a relational side to STEM. What are those careers where there's more camaraderie? It's not, doesn't seem cutthroat. You're not bred in order to kind of, you know, give the other person a cold shoulder, but everyone is like, hey, let's all move together, because it
I
really
love.
sounds like this is some cutthroat Uno. And somebody done dropped the draw four and y'all just stacked it. So like when Howard comes back, we were like, oh man, you gotta pick up 54 cards. Like, what?
I love academia in the context of community colleges, where there's no publisher parish, right? Publisher parish is where if you don't have papers constantly made and grants constantly coming in, you lose tenure. You lose your job. Like where I work, I got tenure after 3 years. I didn't have to publish. I just teach. Not everything that I do is just brata. It's extra. It's something that I like. I am a PI. I have a PI for a grant. I'm going for other grants to become a PI to continue with my principal investigator of grants, right? But it's not required. So I feel like academia is good, specifically in the college system where there's not publisher parish. I think uh, Howard, he's asking about what are the areas where relationship matters more than competition and beating each other out. I think once you have your own practice, tell me if I'm different, if you disagree, Howard Kamoy. Once you have your own practice and you have a conglomerate with a bunch of physicians working together in a area, everybody has their role, everybody's doing their job, chilling. I don't know. What do you think, Kamoy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think probably at least, you know, the biggest, I guess, competition is usually when you're trying to get into medical school,
Yeah.
and also when you're trying to get into residency.
Residency.
Yeah, but once you get there, you're like this with your people. Because
Yeah.
you're,
Yeah.
I think it's getting in that's the hardest part. And you do have to have some level of competition, because if all the schools, all the programs are picking from the same pool, you have to do something to at least elevate yourself, or show that, hey, this is why I deserve to be chosen. I don't know if you'll ever be able to eliminate that, but there's a way to be competitive but not be,
Cutthroat.
throat with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think to me, I feel like once you get there and you're not trying to necessarily go higher, you're just trying to maintain, that's where the camaraderie is happens. Um
And I think everywhere has a there, you know.
everybody had where everywhere has a
Everywhere has a there. I know, as you know, Brian, once you get up past journeyman level, and and you're 13 and up, then you're sort of kind of in this you're kind of in there. From there on, it's sort of just shuffling, basically, and you may be you're still competitive. It's still competitive. People are fighting, jockeying for the next position and so forth. But at that point, it's about who really wants to go to the next layer, and because some people are fine where they are, but that's the competitive aspect of that environment, right? And I don't know if you guys heard me earlier, but the thing that you mentioned, Brian, that I really wanted to sort of point out a little bit further was that whole thing of receiving feedback, being able to receive feedback, and how do you know, when you're going through conflict, how do you know? I know for me, I'm always like, I'm not blaming everything on race. I'm definitely not doing that. But at the same time, I can't prove that you're not racist. Like I excuse me. I wouldn't say it that way, but it's like I I can't prove that race is not involved.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know that. I have no idea because of things such as unconscious bias and so forth. I don't know, and you may not know. I don't know. So I have to just roll, and I have to make sure that I'm receiving feedback as I ought to. Um, you know, is there a difference between positive and negative feedback, or is all feedback feedback?
Yeah, there's a
well,
difference.
positive, negative. Go ahead, Bryant.
No, I'm saying yes, there's a difference. If negative feedback gets me in more trouble than I got before, or it's triggering, I will say if they're giving feedback knowing that it will trigger my I'll say essence. Essence isn't the word that I'm thinking of, but if it triggers my cultural background. I've had a situation where I got feedback and the person mentioned my Adventism and was like, if you were in front of a church, what would you? I was like, it's a government. How is church? Why is this a part of it? But I knew that that person would say that because they knew how proud and
Mhm.
how religion and being grown up in church school, how that affected who I was.
Mhm.
Now, what they were trying to do was to motivate me to do something, but how it came across was a challenge to the core value that I have. And so when feedback is comes from an attack, then yeah, it's negative. Now, positive feedback is one where even if my face doesn't accept it, my mind is like, okay, let me, you planted the seed. It might take a day or two for me to come back. And usually I'll come back and say, you know what, you were right, or help me to see it, not to react. That's when I know that I've received positive feedback, or, I'm not, it doesn't again affect my core values. But yeah, some people
Well,
will say stuff just to get some
Under
type of
right,
your
response.
skin, just to get
right.
under your
I've
skin.
I've experienced the same sort of thing, and I've had someone tell me that when I responded that it was kind of not warranted or not on solid ground, that sort of feedback, then that means I don't know how to take feedback. That's what I was. That's then what was said to me, that I have trouble receiving feedback, and I'm like, wait a second, no, there's different types of feedback here.
Mhm.
You see,
That's
so that's
right.
why I just put that out there because is when I say is feedback is feed. Of course, I believe this negative and positive feedback, but should our response still be as though feedback is feedback? Is your response going to be different when it's coming from that higher up, who we normally say
I feel like it
yes sir
depends.
to?
It depends on the situation. It depends on what you're trying to get done. I was talking to somebody and they were like, in my mind, somebody said something, and I'm like, why didn't you respond this way? They're like, if I had responded this way, then the person would have been vindictive. And so that knowing that, like, you got to manage the situation to get your outcome. The goal is to get your outcome. So you respond in a way to get the outcome that you desire. We're running out of time, so I want to jump into the last two questions. Um, can you share a time when managing conflict led to a positive transformation in team dynamics? Like, can somebody give an example where, you know, when how you manage a conflict, it led to being better?
Oh, I'll go because
Okay. Yeah,
I'm gonna
sure.
get this off my chest. So when I was younger, I was a core, and I was given a job. We had this conference, and I was the youngest person on the team. So I was responsible for orchestrating and managing the contract for the conference. I had an older gentleman, he was of Indian descent, and I had to go tell him, I was like, hey, such and such, I need you to do this. And he got upset. He got so upset that he tried to call me out in front of a staff meeting. And he was like, Bryant, we are not even friends. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are we supposed to be friends? Are we supposed to be friends? And I was going to meet him with the same energy in front, but I looked at my supervisor, acting supervisor, who looked at me, and I was like, okay. I said, so I went to him afterwards and I was like, such and such, I'm here to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
We are not friends. And
Mm-hmm.
this is only really one time that you have to listen to me. So I let him know that, hey, you only got to do this one time. You can go back to how you were doing, put the hierarchy back where it needs to be. And we were able to move forward. Now, were we friends after that? No, because I'm not going to be your friend. You
Mm-hmm.
called me out. No, not that, but really it was the age difference and different backgrounds. But when he said that, I was just like, again, you stand on business, you can respond in that way and you can meet that challenge with authority because I had the authority as the lead to be responsible for this activity.
Right.
And so after that, our relationship was more of mutual respect than
Right.
it was with the age difference. Now, they had a higher grade than me, but again, mutual respect. When you offer respect and you come with respect, even when they speak in foolishness, you get that respect back. So that's what
Love
I did.
it. Love it. I feel like that's the foundation of great conflict management, coming out with mutual respect. I think, especially in the workplace, that you don't need to have friends, you don't have to be in love, but there's mutual respect. Last question. What practical strategies or tools can professionals use to de-escalate tension and build stronger, more collaborative work environments? I think to me, I'll let y'all go as well. De-escalation requires validation. I've learned this, that there's no need to go back and forth with anybody. With somebody who you're above, you set the standard and say, I'm not going back. I understand how you feel. I understand. Like, I had to go with in the past, just recently, like, I understand how you feel. You're not getting an apology from me, but you're going to get my understanding and validation. But you got to do, you know, this XYZ. And but everybody deserves validation. Everybody deserves understanding. And I heard when you say the word "I understand," you de-escalate conflict. So I feel like that would be a really good tool to validate how people feel. Say that their feedback is welcomed. Tell them that they understand, and That's what I would thought. Those are some tools that I would use. What about you guys? Do you guys have any tools for de-escalation that you can have a good collaborative environment?
I had mentioned it earlier because I feel like that has always worked for me. And that is, I am having that conversation. Sometimes it has to be one on one. And, it's not, communication styles will always be different, but are we actually communicating? Are we talking to each other? And yes, again, you do have to, if it's somebody who you are, you are their supervisor, they report to you. At the end of the day, you have to do what I say. And yes, I can understand. I agree with letting the person validating them, but also sometimes yes, you do have to lay down the law. Like it has to be done this way. But at the end of the day, have that conversation because sometimes that's all that you need to resolve that conflict.
Any other tools, guys?
Write the email, but don't press send.
That's a good one. That's a
You
good
know,
one.
Yeah.
some of us, the passive aggressive thing, and you may not want to, you had the experience, but you don't want to, you're finding it difficult to go back and speak directly. And that may be the issue. The other issue is maybe you want to make sure that there's a paper trail for the conversation that was had, documenting the conflict or whatever it is that took place. But, you want to, like you said, you want to produce understanding. Like we mentioned earlier about these type of work experiences or workplaces where it's like family oriented, you're going to be there for many, many years. You don't want to burn bridges. You want to try as much as possible to be amicable.
Peaceably.
And when you feel as though you have been disrespected, go for that walk, and think through it a little bit. If you got that person who you bounce stuff off of, maybe bounce that off of them real quick and just, get the edge off, and then, reconvene in a cerebral manner, reconvene, think about it, and think about the best way to address the issue, without being brawling and carrying on with a whole lot of emotion. That's one of the things.
Awesome, awesome. Bryant, you have the last word.
Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath. Just I think about what grandma and grandpa when they were arguing. And grandpa would be like, "Ugh," and grandma would be like, "It's okay, dear." She ain't had to raise her voice. She ain't have to do anything. He would just quiet down. That's how it is at work. That's how it is in any job. If you understand that a person, if they're really that angry, it's because they're really trying to get their point across, and they're not ready in a point where they'll listen. If you meet them with that saying, that means you're not listening. But if you hit them with that soft answer, they're going to know that you at least heard them. Now, we got to acknowledge that hearing does not mean that we accept it, but that soft answer will de-escalate the situation. And that's all we're trying to do. Once we de-escalate, then the mouth goes down, the ears go up. So Proverbs 15:1.
I hope this has been very helpful for those who are watching. There's going to be a lot of conflict, and hopefully people in our government are watching as well.
Can we leave the government out of this?
Sorry about that. Hopefully people in other places. How about that? I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so are they. Good night, everybody. Wave to the camera.